I was just your slave, never been treated right. I just said, yes ma'am, right away, anything you want. Yes ma'am, anytime, as you wish, right away. I was just a slave.
In my life, I rarely have an opportunity to know if my gender, my color, or even my stature have influenced the way that I am treated in this industry. And what I mean by that is when I walk into a room, instantly people see three things. They see a woman, they see a black woman, and they see a short black woman. So these are three challenges that I have, that I was born with, that I have to deal with in my day-to-day experience. And that's different than what other people may have to deal with, in that I have to then go in and earn a certain level of respect from the individuals in that room that other people just don't have to deal with ever in their lives, particularly tall, white men. The way that I deal with it is that I try to be the smartest person that I can be. I try to be prepared for the rooms that I'm in, whether they be, a pitch meeting or a business meeting, and try to show that I deserve to be at the table. Something that I've seen that we need to take a look at is men who pick up the kids after school, or have to pick them up from the babysitter at 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock.
Yeah.
Do you know how they operate at work? I'm leaving
They're
at
efficient.
7 o'clock. That's it. There is no conversation.
Whatever hasn't been solved yet.
Yeah.
They are out, and they're, and they don't feel like their job is in jeopardy or anything. They're
it's
very
not.
strong about it. Yes.
I have been asked in interviews, do I have children? It's against the law.
Yeah, that
It's
is.
against the law, yeah.
And at the room full of men, I get asked, do you have children? And I have to say yes, because if I don't answer yes, I don't have the job.
Yeah.
So I have to answer. I do sometimes follow up with HR and say, do you know that your team is asking such questions?
Right.
I've also been asked, how old are they? And then I've been humiliated by being questioned, do you know that this job in editorial requires a lot of hours? I had children for 10 years at that point.
Yes.
Do you know that it requires lots of hours and we expect you to be here?
And by the way, you had been working in editorial
Right.
that entire
For
time.
10 years.
Yeah. Like,
And so I said,
yes,
no, I
know.
understand that, but men who have children don't get penalized. Now, I will say that that group that interviewed me, I did not get the job. A couple days later, I got a call, I didn't get the job. They decided to go with somebody in-house. But the person at the studio that was in charge of post-production editorial, who was not in the meeting, called me to say I didn't get the job, but understands that I have young children, and am I sure that I want this responsibility with young children, which meant to me was proof that the team that interviewed me communicated they did not want me because I had young children. So then I had to raise my game and say, I have been working in a studio system for 10 years with children. I need to work. I know the costs. I know the hours. I'm already doing them. Please, please consider me, even though I have a family. And he said, because of course he's a nice guy. He is a nice fella. He said, of course, we're going to reconsider you. You understand the hours, no problem, I get it. But it's humiliating, you know, and I've asked other women and in editorial, and they get asked, are you married, do you have children? It's part of the regular routine when you go to a new place. But the men are expected to have families and children.
And that is not
And when
going
they
to
have
affect their work.
Right, it doesn't affect their work. And when they have a
yeah.
commitment, they're very clear about their commitment and when they have to leave. And they don't have a problem with it, you know?
I have never taken a day off because my children are sick.
No.
My oldest is 15 and my youngest is 5. I've never taken a day off because my children are sick. I've taken hours off to go to a play here and there, but frequently I miss birthdays, plays, events, because as a woman, I think my game has to be higher than the men's to be considered to be promoted.
Yeah.
If I say I have 4 children and I have 4 birthdays to attend at school, or I have to be home for birthday, dinner, or all of a sudden I believe I'm categorized in a different way. I could be that I'm being too hard on myself, but in the past, I may be bridging subjects, but in the past, I have asked for raises. And my post-production supervisor has said to me, not my current, but in the past, said to me, if you want to make more money, tell your husband to get a job, because my husband's been home raising the children.
Right.
I have had a producer on a different show come in when I asked for, the studio was giving everybody a pay cut, and I fought it, saying, why should I don't deserve a pay cut just because the studio isn't doing well. I'm still performing, still turning in a good show. He closed the door and he said, I don't understand. Aren't you just supplemental income for your family? Why would you want to make more money?
Whoa.
Wow. I was the only income.
Who are these people you're working with? Oh my God.
That's a female editor, but I'm telling you, editorial is in the trenches.
Cause
We're
for
below the
action.
line. Do you understand? I'm an assistant editor,
worse.
and I'm below the line.
And you don't own the studio now because
That post-production supervisor that in front of a group of people on a floor of assistant editors and coordinators, without any abashment, said, if you want to make more money, tell your husband to get a job. He then called me, I think intoxicated, 2 more times over a period of 3 months, and said, you're gonna sue me, you're gonna take me down. I needed the job. Isn't that sad? I should have taken him to court, but I thought immediately I would lose my job and we'd be out of money, and I'm the only income, so I kind of felt tied. I wish I had. I didn't tell him what I was going to do or what I wasn't going to do, because I felt like he deserved it, because it was humiliating.
especially in front of the entire floor.
I had all these witnesses,
gosh,
and what I had to say is, it's none of your darn business what my husband makes. We're talking about my salary and my work
The
performance.
job that I'm doing.
Not my husband's, and that's what embarrassed him, because I was able to snap back. But I have also approached a friend who's a female editor, and I said, because I'm still an assistant after 20 years, why haven't I moved up? What am I not doing? And she said, you chose to have children.
Wow.
And I said, does that
Wow,
mean
that's
I can come in
crazy.
later? Does that mean I get to leave early? And she said, no. And I said, then why am I being discriminated against, and by another female? So the problem at work for me is that not only are there men involved in the equation, but there are women that have given up so much to live in filmmaking or in a corporate paradigm that they have scars. They have not had all the children they wanted. They have not gotten married. I had a first assistant editor cry to me when I was in my 20s, and she said, I have nobody. I have nothing. I have no boyfriend, no husband, no children. And she said, I'm still an assistant editor. And in her tears, she said to me, please don't let this happen to you, because nobody is there for me now. She goes, I'm in my 40s and all my editors have retired. She was with an older class of editors. They all retired, and there was nobody to take her on to the next movie. And she said, I gave it all up because I loved movies. And she said, and now I'm with nothing. I think the biggest challenge for me, being a woman in the film industry, has been learning how to communicate so that I could navigate what I wanted out of films. I need to learn how to be more direct. I need to learn how to be more assertive. Those were things that nobody ever mentioned was going to be part of the business. The only thing I had been tipped off to was about schmoozing and making connections, but it's a little bit more than that. It's about allowing a bit of your ego to surface, and it's about taking action and knowing that you can do it with some instructions so that you can do your work better, that you have integrity in how you're going to carry forth the task at hand, but to know that you can make it up and you actually can make it happen. So when this female editor said you chose to have children, she too had given up things. So there's the jealousy that lives in females that maybe have gone without in order to get something at work. It's a double-edged sword, I believe, for women navigating.
And for older women, it's all they knew in order to get to where they are.
Right.
So like Barbara Koppel is a fantastic director, but she grew up making movies in the 70s and the 80s, and she's got a really tough exterior because she had to, because she was dealing with all men in the documentary world, and that's what it took. So I think that even if it's not right or if it is right, you can understand when you
Yes.
think about what they've gone through,
Yes.
why they are the way they are.
Yeah.
It's up to us to help the younger women that are coming up to figure out how to navigate the industry and how to be themselves and how not to lose the femininity or the woman that they are
Also, not to
in the
accept
process.
less than what they deserve. Like, I think that's a
Absolutely.
big
Well,
thing.
it's what you said earlier about the pay. I mean, I've heard that story a million times where people don't ask for more. They go in and they accept the first thing that they're offered. And I've been in that same situation. Guys don't mind having a debate. They don't mind arguing their case. I have a young fella, he is a typical guy that works for me, and he's in his early 20s, and he comes in for raises, for time off, for new position, new titles, and he argues every point until you're just like exhausted. And he's only in his early 20s, but he's going after what he believes he's worth, and he wants to move up. And I can just see in 10 years he's got a cute little girlfriend, he'll be married, they'll have a little family. He's preparing for that future. He knows what he wants for his future.
And see, that's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about, the conditioning of girls. Like, I have a huge issue with people who have an expectation that they should have something without having earned it.
Yes.
But at the same time, I feel like the vast majority of women hold themselves back from gaining faster by also having that mentality and having the sense that they need to over-earn the things that they believe is coming to them, as opposed to walking in and having this expectation, like this guy, like this is what I should be getting, like this is. And so I feel like we need to be conditioning the female children to have an expectation, to understand their value and to demand it when they walk in. And that's different than to me, that is something other than acting like a man. It is understanding your worth.
That's right.
And who you are, however you're, as a woman.
Yeah.
It's
not
a thing that we have a problem with, and it starts in kindergarten.
Yes, it
with
does.
just raising your hand when you have a question, and the little girls are just afraid because the boys are bullying them and telling, and over speaking, over mansplaining, and also talking over them.
But you know what those studies say? Like in kindergarten, they're not. In first grade, they're not. In second grade, they're not.
And then suddenly,
and then by what is it, around the
starts
end
to-
of elementary school?
Third or fourth grade.
Yeah.
That's
Third or
when
fourth
it
grade.
changes. So exactly. So that's also part of the problem. It starts very early on. By the time you get into high school and you're doing interviews for scholarships and you're doing interviews for colleges, there's an intimidation factor that a lot of women have. I certainly had that. And I've seen the young men go into these interviews just, completely expecting to get exactly what they're interviewing for.
But the system feeds them. Like, I find myself at fault for this. It took all this time for me to sit down with an editor and say, I want to become an associate editor. I'm still a first assistant editor, 20 years. I think it's time. I want to become an associate editor. The editor turned to me and said, I don't have time to help you, which was a slap in my face because I've been with him for 3 years. Okay, so I go back to my desk. He's very clear to say as I'm leaving the room, you're a great assistant and you're doing a great job. And I said, thank you. But there's no help. There's no aiding. He's of a different echelon. He's of an older time, right? He's not the new wave maybe that we're hoping for, that we're pulling for. Cut to 3 weeks later, an editorial coordinator, a young man, is working in our suite. We're up against a screening. The studio has an outing for production people in a couple days. He says, I know it's a really bad time to take time off. May I go to this outing? It's a group building. The editor says, let's sit down and talk about this. We really need you. It's very busy, but this could be very good for your career. But 3 weeks before, when I asked about my career, he didn't have time.
Why do you think he did that?
I really believe that no one suspects it's happening. I really believe that this editor comes from a good place. I really believe it's a cultural cloud. It's okay, it's acceptable. Christine has children and a husband. She doesn't need to become an editor. She's just here. But he is a thriving young man and needs to buy a house and have a family and children, and he will probably rise up in the system, whereas Christine won't. She
So
has
was it more
a handicap
ageism than
being
it
a
was
girl.
gender?
I think it's more gender. I really believe that
Yeah, it
nobody
sounds
is
like gender.
seeing this filter. Everybody on the surface.
So
they're
he
being
would
very
have done
kind
the
to me.
same thing for a woman who was of the same age of this young man.
No, I think it's
He
more.
would, if
a
a guy
female.
her age had come in and said the same
I
thing,
want
he
to
would have
become
helped.
He would have helped. Now, not to say that he won't help me, because then when I went back to my desk, because I've met people like this. I mean, I've been in the industry for 20 years. I said, I've got to get back to my seat. I worked for him for 2.5 years. I've got to work harder than I've ever worked before. So he wants to help me. You know, like, that's my mentality, is there's only proof in the pudding. There's no way talking about, because I look like a girl. I am a girl. I talk like a girl.
And here's the thing too, is that when you're dealing with someone like that, in this industry, I've found that a lot of it, you know, is they see themselves in that young man.
Right.
They do.
It's not
It's
even
like,
conscious.
I remember being his age, being in that position
right.
where I didn't have the things that he had,
Yes.
and trying to get on the rung.
Yes.
I remember he reminds me a lot of me.
Yes.
Let me help him get on the rung.
And so I can't be mad at it, but also what I think you guys have, and I'm interested to hear what you have
I
to
think
say.
you can be mad at it. I'm mad at it.
But it's more of like, I have to keep it in check because it's still in my job. You guys are more above the line people, and I am definitely below the line. The films that I'm working on, they're 3 to 4 years long. They're animated movies. So they're baby steps. You know, at first you're an apprentice, you're an assistant, then you're a second assistant, you're a first assistant. I mean, building a career in this formal way that I was abiding by could take 20, 25 years, you know, and at that you might only have 6 movies under your belt. I think nowadays, if I were to do it all over again, I would be a little bit more, I would have more balls about myself and speak up and try to take the driver's seat.
I could travel.
Stay tuned for scenes from the next video episode as well as a special offer. If you've enjoyed this conversation, then be sure to listen to the Radio Film School podcast miniseries, where we interview a wider selection of both men and women and cover a wider range of topics. You can find all of the Breaking the Glass audio and video episodes at daredreamer.fm/breakingtheglass.
Man's eyes, I could swim the oceans.
Breaking the Glass is made possible by VideoBox, a subscription service to license premium HD and 4K stock footage from a massive library. Sign up for a free 7-day trial, then get their year plan for only $99. Just visit videobox.com/RFS. This series is also brought to you by Song Freedom, where you need high-quality music from every genre. It's also your best source to legally license mainstream music for use in weddings, events, personal projects, churches, and nonprofits. Go to songfreedom.com/radio to unlock a free license worth $30.
The women in my family who reared me grew up obviously in a different time, and I was warned, you know, you have to be careful of women because women are very competitive with each other and they can be catty or whatever, la 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 la. And I actually walked into the workplace and even, you know, personally having that expectation. And my experience personally and professionally has been the polar opposite.
Man, are you? What kind of man are